And we're back.
All right. Well, the way that we decided to do this is each of us brought a couple of things that we're excited about that came out of Upfronts to share with the class, if you will. So we're going to kick things off with Eric. Eric, what did you find exciting about all these announcements?
I first was, my attention was caught by a new Mike Schur show, who I most recently enjoyed all of The Good Place.
Such a good show.
And come to find that he also was the showrunner of Parks and Recreation, and it looks like he will be reuniting with Amy Poehler for a new comedy called Dig. And the description in this summary I'm reading says it's about 4 women working at an archaeological dig in Greece who are at wildly different crossroads in their lives. First of all, there's more to this summary, but this alone, I'm excited. The second part of the summary is when they uncover a long-buried secret with the potential to rewrite history, they find themselves at the center of a high-stakes international conspiracy. If you are familiar with The Good Place, you will know that that is a show that had seemingly limitless creative twists and turns and potential. You never know exactly where it's going to go. And if Dig is anything like that, plus bringing back, I'm sure, some of the talent that Mike Schur has worked with in the past. Ooh, I'm so excited. This was a wonderful thing to first read about and happen because I did the NBC Universal Upfronts first. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. Have you guys seen any? You guys have all seen The Good Place, right?
Yep. The Good Place. Also Parks and Rec.
No.
Yeah. Love both. And I mean,
Mike, have I got a show for you?
Is it called The Good Place?
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, the less you know about it, if you've managed to survive this far without seeing it, they're only 30-minute episodes.
Yeah, I will say, as a very non-spoiler, probably also one of the best series finales I've seen in a really long time. I think that they really stuck the landing.
Is it one season thus far?
I think it's 4. It's
fully
fully
I
finished.
think 4 total seasons. It's basically like, it's a half-hour comedy, and at least for the first couple of seasons, the premise is, what if every single episode ended on a twist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Doesn't every episode of every show end on a twist?
You would think.
No.
I don't know.
What else you got for us, Eric?
Yeah. So 2 more things I took note of here. There's apparently a reality show called On Brand with Jimmy Fallon that's coming. And the explanation for this is that Fallon launches a high-stakes marketing agency in this competition series, assembling the most clever, creative, and competitive minds he can find. Marketing is fun. High-stakes marketing is fun. This could, you could see a lot of cool, fun ideas taking place here. And, you know, I think it's time for me to just assert, this might be the first time I've said this on What the Hype, but I just love Jimmy Fallon. I have liked Jimmy Fallon since the 2001 MTV Movie Awards, when I first saw this kid at that point, and I didn't know who he was, playing the guitar to Madonna's, what was her song? The one where she's on the side of the road and singing a song about the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes. I mean, Jimmy Fallon could do no wrong. So I'm very excited for this show.
Yeah, I like Fallon too. It's one of the few like late night hosts who, if something of his comes up on my feed, I'll usually stop. I feel like nowadays, with the exception of like Jon Stewart and John Oliver, I have found myself steering away from late night talk shows just because I feel like they're all talking about the same thing, basically. But I really do like Fallon.
It is funny because, again, the early thousands, late 90s TV that I was watching had people on it that would become today's late night hosts, like Jimmy Fallon I mentioned, but also Jimmy Kimmel was an assistant on the Comedy Central show Win Ben Stein's Money, which I'm pretty sure I've seen every episode of. So I liked Jimmy Kimmel, and all of a sudden, oh my God, he's becoming a late night go. Like, it was wild in 2013 whenever that was announced. I was like, oh my God. So very exciting stuff. And, you know, the final thing here that I wrote down for the NBC Universal is this behind the scenes. called Epic Ride, The Story of Universal Theme Parks. Now, the title of that 3-part documentary should raise your eyebrow. As you know, they're probably trying to glomp onto SEO for people searching for the new Universal theme park, Epic Universe, but I'll allow it. It's a 3-part docuseries chronicling Universal's theme park legacy, and it culminates in a behind-the-scenes countdown to the opening of Epic Universe. Actually, it's worth noting that Epic Universe is in previews. We actually know someone who went and visited and gave us a short report of what that experience was like. But Epic Universe and Universal's long history of immersive ride experiences is an interesting story in and of itself. They really blow my mind every time I ride a Universal ride at one of the parks. And so seeing a behind-the-scenes series is clearly a good fit. I've witnessed some of this stuff over on Disney Plus, some of these other behind the scenes for theme park stuff. So I think this will be definitely worth taking a look.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I mean, as I grew up in California, I think I spent more time at Universal Hollywood, right? Because that's just not too far from where I grew up. But the thing that was always fascinating about it is that Universal Studios Hollywood is a working studio. So like the park is sandwiched next to a working studio, and you always kind of like forget that. And then when I was in LA, I spent a lot of time on the NBC Universal backlot, and you just forget that the theme park is right there until the tram goes by with the tours, then you're like, oh yeah, like this is a ride, but it's also a studio tour, but there's also a theme park like just up the block. So it's really, as theme parks go, it's an interesting one for sure. I'll be checking that out.
But Micah, what do you have from NBC Universal?
I'll be honest, the thing that really caught my eye was Snoop Dogg to host New Year's Eve special for both NBC and Peacock. Anything that has Snoop Dogg in it has my attention. So
right. Continuing his partnership with NBC, right? Because he did the Olympic coverage for them too. Yeah.
He's it goes without saying, just massively entertaining. I enjoy his occasional commentary on animal videos when there's prey
I was just going to bring up the Blue Planet snakes versus lizards.
Yeah. But
classic.
I mean, there is probably nobody better positioned to host a New Year's Eve party than Snoop Dogg. So while I have traditionally moved away over the last, let's say 5 to 10 years from really engaging in anything New Year's related, like I treat it like it's just another evening, I would definitely tune in to watch Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, Miley Cyrus has been hosting, I believe, the last few years NBC.
Why wasn't that on my radar?
Correctly.
Yeah.
At least, if not last year, like then a couple years. She did at least 2 years in a row, and then Dolly obviously showed up because that's her godmother, and it was great.
I was going to say, I remember the one when Dolly showed up.
Mm-hmm. And it's fun. It was fun, but it's always nice to shake it up. And I agree, Micah. Snoop is just like, he knows how to host a show, and he's just naturally funny even when he's not trying to be. So I'm down for that. I think it'll be a fun shake up for them.
Yeah, I think so too.
Looks like moving along to the Fox upfronts, only one of us picked something out for Fox, and it was Micah. Tell us what shows on Fox, Micah, are you excited for?
Not Fox News, let's be clear.
Micah, I know what your channel is when you turn the TV on.
Every morning, Fox and Friends. Just kidding. The two things that stood out to me, these are actually revivals in a way, and I would not say that I would regularly watch these shows, but they did pique my interest. Celebrity, Weakest Link, and Fear Factor. These are reboots. The Weakest Link has, I feel like, been around now for a while. It's changed hosts. But it does seem as if the plan is to bring back the original host for this, which I think would be entertaining because she's the one who really just, made you want to say the phrase to somebody.
You are the weakest thing. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Anne Robinson. It seems like more recently was replaced by Jane Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I would also watch Jane Lynch doing that. I haven't, but I would.
Yeah. Anne Robinson was sort of like your stereotypical hardline British woman. And I think that's what was so interesting in terms of like, she didn't take any crap from anybody. And she very rarely would crack a smile or make a joke. And if she did, it was in that sassy, satirical type of way, like, and in many ways also condescending, depending on, what the topic was. So I'd be interested to see how she handles celebrities and what that all looks like. I don't know that this show candidly has like a long shelf life, but we'll see.
Yeah.
And then Fear Factor, obviously Joe Rogan hosted that when it last aired, and that was on NBC initially, and now it's coming to Fox. So I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about who they are looking to have host this show. But yeah, these are shows not that I grew up on by any stretch, but certainly watched as kind of that reality TV boom was happening.
Yeah. These were definitely a couple of like reality TV staples back when we were all growing up. So I feel like our age group is just currently on the nostalgia wave where like companies and their marketing departments are like, how can we squeeze more money out of the millennials? Let's just reboot everything that we did when they were young.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I was feeling a lot of as I was going through and reading some of the articles that we have on these upfronts was nostalgia. American Gladiators, which we'll talk about for Amazon Prime, is another great example of that. Like that's a show I actually grew up watching. So to look to bring that back again, it makes me question whether there's any good ideas that anybody has anymore, or they're just constantly looking to bring back things that were successful. I mean, nobody has any like new good ideas. It's just,
yeah, I mean, it does feel like they're few and far between. And to that, I would just suggest everyone go out and see Sinners, because it is a really phenomenal movie that is actually an original story. I know those are really few and far between nowadays in terms of what's getting released. It's not part of some big franchise machine. It's just a really good story. So there's your bonus recommendation for the week.
Love that.
What else do you have for Prime, Micah? You already brought up American Gladiators.
So the other thing that caught my eye was Spider Noir, and literally caught my eye. That was the reason why I put it down. Like I have no context to it. Other folks on the panel might know more about it than I do, but it just looks super cool. And so I'm definitely in for at least the first few episodes.
Have you seen any of the Into the Spider-Verse movies, Micah?
I have not.
You should.
Oh, yeah, they're really good.
You, yes, you are in for an animated masterpiece. It will actually change your brain chemistry watching that movie.
I think they're
and it's
both still on Netflix.
Sequel,
if I remember
I
correctly.
think so. But those movies gave rise to this character, Spider Noir. Well, it technically comes from the comics. I'll ask Mark to actually lay out the whole history. But I first heard of Spider Noir from these movies, and these movies cast Nicolas Cage in the role. The news coming out of Spider Noir being that Nick Cage is in for the Spider Noir series on Prime. So, can't be worse than Longlegs. So I think that would be a good time.
Yeah, and you know what? I also read that they are collaborating with the studio that made Spider-Verse on this, so I would not be surprised if there were also some Easter eggs from the larger Spider-Verse universe. And we know that we are currently waiting on the third installment to that film franchise. So who knows? They might use, depending on when Spider-Noir comes out, they might use it to introduce some new story beats or even like close out some like more minor storylines before they get into the third movie. I'm excited though. It's going to be very cool.
I did not know that the second movie was a part one of part two until the credits rolled.
I think we were all in that boat. The cliffhanger there was insane.
Okay. So like seeing that movie, I remember being like, because first of all, it's a brilliant movie.
It was amazing.
It hurtles like 100 miles an hour. It is a bullet train. And as you get into like the last 20 minutes of the movie, you're like, how are they going to wrap all this up? And then it's like,
just kidding, they're not.
They don't.
Continued.
Yeah. I was in a packed theater for that, and just like the visceral reaction of the entire audience was that's the stuff that like movie going dreams are made of, honestly.
Yeah.
Like you want I forgot how much I missed being in a packed theater house like post-COVID, basically, because that's such like a pre-COVID thing, and it's very rare still that I go to the movies nowadays and the whole like house is packed. So
yeah,
that was really fun. Anyone else have anything for Amazon Prime Video?
Yeah, so I just wanted to call out Fallout Season 2. I don't know if anyone here watched Season 1.
Heard good things.
Oh, it was so good. You have to watch it. It stars Ella Purnell and Walton Goggins, and both of them are just fan-freaking-tastic in this. It is... I never played the Fallout series, to be totally fair, but everything I understand from my friends who have and who love it, this is such a loving adaptation that is also an original story. So, like, they're basing the story in the universe of Fallout, but they're not, like, hamstringing themselves into having to follow a particular character arc. And so I think that's really interesting. But the first season was great, and season 2, it was announced, is going to be coming out in December. And they also announced it's been renewed for its third season. So I'm super excited for it. It's really great. It's like, another post-apocalyptic show. But I feel like Fallout, sort of in contrast to The Last of Us, there's almost like a dark comedy flair to Fallout that I really appreciate, and I think makes it maybe a more approachable post-apocalyptic show for general audiences who maybe don't have the stomach for something like The Last of Us. It is so good though. The writing's great, like really funny, and yeah, I'll just say that Fallout Season 1 gave birth to a million fan fictions about Walton Goggins' character, the Ghoul, which when you see him, you'll understand. But it's also, I think it also perplexed a lot of like studio execs, because they were like, why are you thirsting after this, like,
did they learn nothing from the Vecna?
Right, exactly.
Oh,
people
God.
were thirsting for Vecna, and it's like, no, you make a hot, scary anti-hero type character, and people people are into monster romance these days. I don't know what to tell them. They're just on the wrong side of the internet, like,
I guess.
Daddy, I can fix him.
Right, exactly.
But that's going to be so good. I can't wait. Definitely encourage y'all to get into that. And hey, if anyone's interested in us covering Fallout, just let us know.
Ooh. I had one also on for Prime, and it was a Christmas movie Now, it's not me, it's my mother that has a permanent lifetime Hallmark subscription to the channel, not to put my mom Janet on blast, but it's not me. I haven't seen a Christmas movie I have liked in 30 years. It's bad. I really want to, and yeah, there's been a few that have come close. Castle for Christmas with Carrie Elwes, because Carrie Elwes is in it. But anyway, there's a new one coming out called Oh, What Fun, because that's one of the few phrases from a popular Christmas tune that hasn't yet been put into a movie title. But it stars Felicity Jones, and maybe I'm just on a Rogue One and Andor kick, but it also stars Michelle Pfeiffer, Chloe Grace Moretz, Danielle Brooks, Jason Schwartzman, Ava Longoria, Dennis Leary, Maud Apatow, Joan Chen, and the stated what is this? Synopsis for the movie is that the film centers on Claire, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, who plans a special Christmas but is forgotten by her family. When they realize she's missing, their holiday's at risk until she returns to give them the celebration they deserve. So certainly elements of family, maybe even a little bit of like Home Alone in there a little bit. But I think that this cast feels fresh. And from what I've seen, there is actually a 2.5-minute trailer available now for it. And it just looks like a movie that I would actually probably enjoy. So I'll give it a shot. What the heck?
I'm interested in that one because the description makes it sound potentially like it takes a turn. Like her whole family forgets about her for Christmas, and then the holiday's almost ruined until they remember her so she can give them the Christmas they deserve.
Sounds
I'm just
familiar.
saying. Yeah, sounds like it's gonna like make a left turn, maybe. I don't know. But that's also just my brain. I like true crime, so I look for it everywhere.
Is she stuck in her home and it's going to be vandalized by two bandits and she's going to set up the
Played
house?
by Daniel Stern and Joe Pesci?
Yes.
We'll see.
Okay, let's move on to Disney Plus, Hulu, and FX.
This is the big one for me. I just finished watching,
okay.
thanks to Hulu with Disney Plus. I watched all of the X-Files again recently, so that's exciting. I have to say, even though we may know the least about it, the thing from Disney is the thing I'm most excited for, Zootopia 2.
Long time in the works.
Yeah.
I wanted a Zootopia 2 from the minute I walked out of the theaters of Zootopia 1, and excited to see Jennifer Goodwin back, and really just the voice cast, the director, who's done a number of other huge Disney movies since then. But I'm just excited to return to that world because I felt that world was really wholesome and special. So I'm really looking forward.
Yeah, I really liked the first Zootopia. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I think because I hadn't really been paying attention, so I hadn't seen any trailers. I didn't know anything about it. And, you know, going into it, thinking about the premise of it, you know, being a society where, you know, personified animal creatures are running everything, I was like, oh, okay, cool, this will be a cute little kids movie, but it's actually so much more than that, so I'll be excited for part 2.
I had just a quick little Hulu note that caught my eye, which is that we got the official season release date for The Bear season 4. We kind of knew that it was going to come out in June because that would fall in line with past seasons, but they officially announced that season 4 will debut on June 25th, and also all 10 episodes are going to be available to stream on Hulu beginning at 8 p.m. Eastern, so you won't have to wait weekly to binge 1 or 2 episodes of The Bear. I didn't love last season. I'm not sure if this is a show that anyone on the panel watches, but I will be interested to see if they turn things around in season 4.
Is it still set in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay. That's
That
why it
should
was
be
on my
reason
radar.
enough for you, Eric.
I know. It's honestly, and nothing but my long list is keeping me from it.
Started watching the first season, but I haven't returned to it since.
A lot of people find it way too stressful and anxiety inducing.
I can see why.
Yeah, I kind of love it. I never worked in a restaurant, but like my family did, like growing up, my dad and uncles all worked in restaurants. So I think it's kind of like it was nostalgic for me for that reason, because I remember going over and visiting them, and then having worked as a barista in coffee shops, it's like a very similar environment. So I appreciate the accuracy.
It has to be
food
super stressful for the actors. Have they spoken about that? Because the scenes are pretty intense.
It is crazy, like how many people are talking over one another at the same time, and how many conversations are happening at the same time. It's really actually impressive. And also just like there's so much movement in the way that these scenes are shot in such a confined space. The first season is worth watching, if anything, because it's a really well done show, and it like the way that it extrapolates like kind of like the main question that the main character is struggling with is really well done. They have like really great guest stars too. Jamie Lee Curtis has come on almost every season to play the main character's mother. Ooh. And she's incredible every time she comes on screen. I think she won the Emmy for her performance in Seven Fishes last season. But yeah, there's a reason why it's an Emmy darling. For sure. What about you, Laura, for Disney Plus, Hulu, or FX?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to call out Daredevil season 2. So we're getting Daredevil Born Again season 2 in March of 2026, but it was also confirmed that Kristen Ritter is going to reprise her role as Jessica Jones in season 2. So she, of course, had her own show, Jessica Jones, on Netflix back in the day when Netflix had all of the 3 seasons of it, had all of the Marvel TV shows, and her show was also fantastic. So really exciting to see her getting pulled into this universe. Again, it confirms that all of these like street level New York heroes are part of the MCU. So it'll be interesting to see if they leverage any of these characters to take part in like the wider universe, or if they're going to keep them more like street level, more New York based, and maybe more characters that we would see in shows and maybe not so much see them in movies. We've seen some crossover, like Daredevil did briefly appear in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah.
That came out a couple of years ago, but yeah, it'll just be cool to see what they do with it. I'm rooting for Marvel to do better, because they've had a rough few years, if we're being honest. So
yeah, it seemed too like they were teeing up Kingpin, or Dorfino's Kingpin, to make an appearance too to your point, in like the wider MCU, but I mean, they haven't really circled back to any of the events of Hawkeye. So
no, yeah, which is weird.
I know, because
yeah,
maybe with, I don't know, but I thought maybe we would get more with like through like the Spider-Man MCU, but then they're really tying that into the tear in like the timeline, so it's getting a little more sci-fi than,
yes,
normal Earth timeline.
I think the thing that'll be really interesting to see is how the Spider-Man continuity keeps up with what's been established in Daredevil, because at this point, no spoilers, but like Fisk, Wilson Fisk has like a very prominent societal role, and it would be really weird if that didn't come up in the next Spider-Man movie. But unfortunately, we've kind of seen Marvel miss stuff like that before, where it's like, why is nobody acknowledging the fact that like a giant stone god was emerging from the Indian Ocean,
right,
at the end of Eternals, and like nobody talked about it in any Marvel properties until the most recent Captain America movie, where they were like, oh yeah, that happened. So like, yeah, they need to get better at that. And so I'm hoping that, especially with some of the successes we've seen recently, like Thunderbolts was very good. I actually really liked Captain America as well. I'm hoping that we're on an upswing with Marvel and that we're getting back on track.
They're not quite, or they weren't quite threading the needle, to give them some credit, towards the start of this new phase. Not in a satisfying way like they were in the first phase that has completely ended. So, but I think you're right. It does feel like, at least between, you know, like the newest Captain America and Thunderbolts, that we're kind of getting back on track a little bit.
I love the idea of these actors and characters making their way to Disney, but I do think we kind of had a perfect run of those Marvel Netflix shows. I watched every single one of them, including The Defenders, which is a whole series where they team up for a season. And between Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Luke Cage, and yes, even Iron Fist, both seasons, was a tightly told interweaving story that had all those continuity kind of things that you like to see. And there's probably 10 seasons or so between them of television, which I believe finally did show up on Disney Plus now.
It did, yeah. It was just too bad that they, you know, they started canceling those. That
was such a wild.
It was an
experience.
insane day. Yeah, I was working the news shift, the PM news shift on a Friday when nothing ever happens, and all of a sudden it was like every half hour they were canceling a Netflix and Marvel property, to the point where I was like, by the time that we got 3, I was like, I'm just going to start writing up the others, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I was expecting, like, years ago those shows to just go straight to Disney, and it took forever.
It's, you know, Netflix, the issue with Netflix is that they really tie up their IP, or the IP that, like, they start with, which is why it's so hard for things that get canceled on Netflix to get picked up and saved by other networks, because the buyout is super expensive, and it's even more expensive if they're working with another studio as well, because the budget, like, or not the budget, but like the total sum doubles. So that's why it was a huge deal when I don't know if any of you were One Day at a Time fans. I was obsessed with that show.
Oh yeah.
But it was a huge deal when that got saved, because I think it was Pop, the network that saved it for the 4th season, was able to buy out not only the Netflix contract but also the Sony Studios contract. Yeah, and they allowed them to do it. So yeah,
that's wild.
Well, I'm still waiting on Sense8 season 3. Please buy that one out. But
well, I think we are going to chat about Netflix and Warner Brothers here in a moment. But first, we do need to take one more quick break. And after that, we'll be back to chat about some of the shows that we're most excited about in the coming year.